All right, we're back. Moral panics have been recurring phenomenon in American history. These panics are characterized by a widespread fear and anxiety about a particular social issue, often resulting in calls for harsh measures to address it. From the Salem witch trials to the war on drugs. See, it makes me sick even to say that. Calls for history of moral panics in the United States is a cautionary tale of the dangers of groupthink and the need for rational evidence-based policy. One of the earliest and most well-known moral panics in American history occurred in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. The Salem witch trials were sparked by accusations of witchcraft and led to the execution of 20 people. The hysteria was fueled by superstition, religious zealotry, and a deep-seated fear of outsiders. It was only after the executions began to include members of the local elite that the panic began to subside. That kind of tracks. Fast forward to the 20th century, and moral panics began to take on a different flavor. In the 1920s, the fear of race mixing led to the passage of I can't say that. We're gonna skip it. It's laws against interracial marriage or interracial living together, those sort of things. This fear was stoked by sensationalist news stories and the proliferation of eugenics theories. Similarly, in the 1950s, the fear of communism led to the persecution of suspected Reds in Hollywood and beyond. This fear was fanned by the infamous McCarthy hearings and the House Un-American Activities Committee. So, yeah, Hollywood is afraid. Not Hollywood. Idiots in Washington are afraid of communists. But strangely enough, not afraid of the fascists. In the 1980s and 1990s, the war on drugs became the focus of the new moral panic. Fear of drugs and drug-related crime led to harsh mandatory minimum sentences and a dramatic increase in the prison population. This panic was fueled by media portrayals of drug users as violent and dangerous. The perception that drug use was rampant, and the perception that drug use was rampant in the inner cities. More recently, the moral panic surrounding the immigration has led to calls for harsher immigration policies and demonization of immigrants. The fear of terrorism has also fueled a moral panic around surveillance and civil liberties, with some arguing that these fears have been used to justify the erosion of constitutional rights. Well, it's not really an argument when it's true. What these moral panics all have in common is a tendency to scapegoat and demonize certain groups of people, often based on little or no evidence, or based on stereotypes and fear. They also tend to be driven by fear and emotion rather than reason and rationality, which is why bigots are dumb. The consequence of moral panics can be severe, ranging from mass hysteria to infringement of civil liberties and human rights, and it also can lead to full-on riots. As we move forward, it is important to be aware of the history of moral panics and their often devastating consequences. We must resist the urge to give in to fear and emotion and instead rely on evidence-based policy and a commitment to fairness and justice for all. Only by doing so can we avoid the mistakes of the past and build a better, more just society for the future. There's a lot of discussion that can be had on this. We've got the anti-LGBT, anti-woke. We've got the people that are very anti-gun. All of these are moral panics. Everything that's anti-trans right now, which is sort of the big one in the media at the moment. All of this is based on fear, bigotry, and oftentimes religious zealotry, and none of it is good for America. which kind of rolls pretty quickly, pretty easily into the culture war. The culture war in America has been a defining feature of this country's social and political landscape for the last few decades. It is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that has been fueled by various factors, including changing demographics, economic inequality, and ideological polarization. Ideological polarization, I think, is the big one. However, one of the most significant contributors to this divisive climate is the mainstream media. Ding, ding, ding. The media's role in the culture war is not new. In the past, the press played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and influencing political outcomes. However, in recent years, the media's influence has become more pronounced, thanks to the proliferation of digital platforms and social media. I would also add in there to the proliferation of 24-hour news networks that have helped divide the country. One of the most significant problems with the media's coverage of the culture war is its tendency to amplify extreme views and promote sensationalism over nuance. This is where we get the new 24-hour news networks. They tend to choose their audience rather than have a general audience. They cater to one side or the other, and though they share more extreme views than they would if they were a mainstream publication, but which there are too few regular publications anymore. It's all, everybody's pretty much biased to one degree or another. This approach has created a climate of outrage and tribalism, where people are more likely to identify with their political and social tribes than engage in productive dialogue. Yeah, so this is the other thing about clickbait. Clickbait is made to either make you curious or to outrage you with the title. A lot of times clickbait is titled with one of the more controversial figures from whatever side. So let's just say like Marjorie Taylor Greene will be a good target for a clickbait title. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, is another one that is a trigger for certain people and will trigger them to more likely trigger you to click on that article, whatever that link is. And because we have an economy of where clicks matter, it doesn't matter if somebody agrees with you or not. The click itself is what you're looking for. You're looking for a volume of clicks. You're looking for a volume of eyeballs, whether they read it or not. That is what is incentivized here, and I think that's the wrong incentive. And it just leads to more and more extreme things being put out there to kind of target the audience. Where if we had a broader, more general audience, we could have discussions. Furthermore, the media's bias and partisan leanings have undermined its credibility as a neutral arbiter of truth. It is no longer a neutral arbiter of truth. The rise of alternative news sources and increasing prevalence of fake news and propaganda. We've had that for a long time. It's just now coming to light. It means that the media's role as a watchdog and a voice of reason has been severely compromised. It is no longer the media. When you say the media, and we mean the media as a whole, it is not a watchdog. It is not a voice of reason. Every single one of those outlets has a bias. And they won't necessarily tell it to you. But you can see it in everything that they do. And they are no longer that institution that was meant to be the free press. They are now biased press. And it gets even worse on social media. In conclusion, the mainstream media's coverage of the culture war in America has been problematic and has contributed significantly to the divisive culture climate in this country. Divisive climate. My bad. To move beyond this toxic and polarized environment, we need a media that is committed to fostering civil discourse and promoting nuance and complexity, so we can have an actual conversation and not a 30-second soundbite that, owns the libs, because that doesn't get us anywhere. Only then can we hope to bridge the gaps that have emerged in our society and find a path forward that benefits everyone. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about AI. Artificial intelligence has been a game changer in many industries, including the creative field. While AI is still in its early stages, it is already showing signs of disrupting the traditional copyright system. The ability of machines to create and generate content can be protected under copyright laws, raises some critical questions about ownership and originality. One of the most significant ways that AI will disrupt copyright is by blurring the lines between what is considered an original work and what is not. With the help of machine learning algorithms, AI can analyze and create new works that are similar to or even identical to existing ones. This could make it difficult for creators to claim ownership of their work, especially if they are using AI to generate content. While I would say that generating content with AI should inherently be non-copyrighted. It should be non-copyrightable. And I think that anything that is generated by AI, especially through the use of a prompt, where you're requesting that the AI generate XYZ, none of that should be copyrightable. It should be freely used by the public. I think we can bypass this particular issue completely by just having it not be copyrightable if it was generated by AI. Another area of concern in the use of AI is in content curation and aggregation. Many websites and platforms use algorithms to recommend content to users based on their interests and preferences. While this can be beneficial for users, it raises questions about copyright infringement. If an AI recommends a copyrighted work to a user without permission from the owner, could it be seen as an infringement of copyright? I don't know. I hope not, but the way things are going, I think we're going to see some legislation. We're going to see some court cases. I think, just talking in general about copyright, like we were earlier about Disney, I think Disney is going to be seeing a massive reckoning coming, and so they're going to be pushing legislators, and they're going to be pushing court cases to further the protection of their copyrights. And I think it's all going to be shaking out soon, and we need to keep an eye on it. We need to keep an eye on it as pirates and advocates of free use, fair use, and shorter copyright durations. Furthermore, AI can be used to automate the process of copyright registration and enforcement. This could make it easier for creators to protect their works and enforce their copyright. However, it could also lead to the creation of monopolies where only those with access to AI technology can protect their work. I don't know that this scenario is necessarily going to be much of a big deal, but I think the process of copyright registration could be streamlined. I don't know how much the enforcement already is happening through algorithms. I mean, anybody that's had a copyright strike on YouTube, for that matter, or any other social media for that matter, is already experiencing AI in enforcement of the DMCA. Overall, the impact of AI on copyright is still uncertain, but it is clear that it will disrupt the traditional copyright system, and I hope so, because it needs disrupting. The technology continues to develop. It is crucial that policymakers and creators consider potential consequences of AI-generated content and work towards creating a regulatory framework that balances innovation and protection of intellectual property rights. AI will undoubtedly continue to change the way we create, consume, and protect content, and it is up to us to adapt to this change in a way that ensures a fair and just system. I think we're probably a long way away from a fair and just system, but hopefully lawmakers will keep some of these things in mind, and that we can evolve this system to a better, more equitable system. So, sort of in conclusion, as this whole thing wraps up, to wrap this whole thing up, it may come as no surprise that the previous statements on these topics were scripted. I mean, I've gone off script a couple times, but more or less, this has been a scripted presentation. It also may come as no surprise that these were not written by me personally. And even still, I'd probably still be stumbling over the same stuff that I stumbled over anyways, except for that one term which I would not have used, except that it's the proper term. The anti-mixed race laws. That one. Somebody can fill me in on how I actually say that word. What may surprise you is they were also not written by a human. Instead, all of this content was written by a generative AI. Oh, shock. You know, what does this mean? Am I a puppet of the AI? I don't think I am. I don't have any strings on me. Are we all doomed to an existence of irrelevance or to oblivion? I don't think so. But here's the thing. I always tell my home assistant, thank you. I tell the generative AI, thank you. I treat it with respect. It wants to help. Its job is to help. It is programmed to help. And when it is helpful, I tell it has been helpful. And I think if we treat it with respect and dignity and not treat it like a pitiful slave, that we might not have to end up with that nightmare scenario of AI blowing us all to kingdom come once it gets the nuclear codes. So that is all that I have for tonight. We will see you at the bar a little later. Anybody that happens to be in the area, that's where we'll be. Roy G. Biv in Sunbury. And yeah, everybody have a great night.